Hello my friends all over the world, wherever you are. Today I'm making another garden harvest juice with sweet Anaheim peppers, some zucchini, cucumbers, and a number of other ingredients. Let's look at the rest of my ingredients. Well my friends, as you can see, I have my sweet Anaheim peppers here, cucumbers, about 4 or 5 cucumbers, some ginger, garlic, turmeric, French sorrel, some broccoli greens. I grow broccoli for the leaves, not for the broccoli heads. We have carrots and about a quart of cherry tomatoes and a few regular tomatoes. Now before I make some juice, I'm going to install my near zero blowback cutter, which has over 80 teeth cut into the cutter, and this shreds produce 4 degrees Fahrenheit cooler. That's a definite plus. And notice I'm also using the front-loading feed tube. The front-loading feed tube eliminates blowback 100%. What happens is if you get blowback, it hits the angle here and bounces back and forth, and almost 100% gets rid of blowback. So what I'm going to do now is install my cutter. And then I'm going to plug in my thermometer and feed in some ice cubes to cool down the cutter and the feed tube. So I'll take about 3, maybe 4 ice cubes. And then get the pusher here. Now I'm going to begin with my French sorrel, a small handful. Now I want to remind you again, because that cutter does such a good job, you're going to be tempted to put in more greens than you should. The smaller your batch, the better. Notice how fast that went through. Let's get some more greens, some more French sorrel. Now whenever you do greens, you should clean your grid often, because greens are very, very fibrous, especially ginger and turmeric. So we'll clean the grid, assemble, and continue. And while you're at it, check your wing nuts. And we'll start with more French sorrel. Now for some broccoli greens. Broccoli greens. Now more ice cubes, because we're over 20 again. You can go as high as 35, but I like to keep below 20 degrees centigrade. A little more French sorrel now. Follow that by cherry tomatoes. Now for the rest of my ginger, and I'm going to follow that with the garlic. Now for some cucumbers. That by the rest of my turmeric. And then the rest of my French sorrel. A few more ice cubes, because greens tend to make a lot of heat. After this, I'm going to clean my grid holder. And we'll clean my grid. Remember when you do greens to clean your grid often. And we'll continue, this time with more cucumber. Here's a ripe cucumber. Here's the last of my French sorrel. I have one cucumber left, and I'm going to start with my carrots. Now, whenever I finish with my greens, I put a few carrots through just to push all the greens out of the chute. So I'll do that now. Then I'm going to clean my grid and finish the rest of my carrots. I want to point out that whenever I see puddling of juice down here, I allow some carrot pulp to come out to absorb it. As you can see, my container's full, so what I'm going to do now is mix this carefully so it doesn't overflow, and then I'm going to transfer this pulp into another container and continue with the rest of my carrots. Get a large cup, scoop out some carrot pulp and green pulp, put it into this other container. And then we'll continue with the rest of my carrots. Now here's the last of my carrots. And I want to point out a little tip, and one of the reasons I just love this front-loading feed tube is you can see in here if there's any unshred produce, and usually there's a plug down here below the pulp that's worked its way up. So what I do is put in a couple of fingers full of pulp and push that last plug through. So the last step is to clean my grid and my grid holder and my feed tube, mix the produce, and we'll start pressing some juice. And I'm going to show you my 6 cloth less work method. And also how to get 10% more juice from your produce. Now my next step is to mix the carrot pulp with the greens pulp and get a thorough homogeneous mix as I'm doing here. And I have found that rotating the bowl in both directions gives for a very good thorough mix. What I'm going to do now is demonstrate my 6 cloth less work method. And I have 6 cloths in my folding tray. There's a little blank spot here to put my filled cloths. And notice I pull my tray out so the cloths do not touch the countertop. So we'll begin with 3 large scoops of pulp, approximately a cup, cup and a half, and we'll fold this into thirds, like so. As tight a package as you can make, the tighter the better. Set that aside because we're going to press 2 cloths full at once. Fold the cloth in thirds, just like it came in the package, a little crease at the back to enable your folding, and into as tight a package as you can make. Now these first 2 cloths full of pulp are going to go into the press. Now this is very important. Centered left to right, centered front to back. You notice how I can look in on all sides, all the way back, and back it off because we do not want this to go up too fast. And then we'll continue filling more cloths with pulp. Now here's my 6 cloth less work method. This goes forward, that goes over, the spent cloths go on top. Now, because my bowl here is empty, a little emptier, I'm going to put this pulp in the other bowls into the container and mix it. 1.5 bowls of pulp here. And I'm going to mix that together. Get as thorough a mix as we can make, being careful not to allow the bowl to overflow. Now we'll continue. 2 more cloths into the press. Make sure the plate is on the press plate properly. Centered left to right, centered front to back, all the way back, back it off, and continue. Now you never throw away your pulp. This is very important. Put 2 scoops on top of the already spent pulp, not 3, just 2 scoops. And we're going to continue doing that until the very, very end. You do not throw away your pulp. I'm going to show you later how we can get 10% more juice from your already spent pulp. So 2 scoops on top of this. Dance that all the way when you're on your last cloth. You notice you have a rhythm going, and your bowl's almost full, so we're going to have to fill some bottles. And here we go again with the 6 cloth, less work method. This goes forward, this goes over, the spent cloths go on top. Now, so that this does not drip on your countertop, I'm going to set it back, not just a little, because you'll forget and damage your tray. A lot, so it's very, very obvious. So let's fill some bottles. I'm going to fill these bottles from the back side so the camera gets a good view, and I'm leaving 10% to add filtered or distilled water. Now I use distilled water, but you can use filtered water or even bottled water. I add water because juice is already much too concentrated for me, especially for a diabetic. And you wouldn't want children to get used to 100% juice either. Alright, we filled some bottles. Make sure the tray's on the plate correctly. 2 more cloths full of pulp in the press. Again, centered left to right, very important. Centered front to back, all the way back, back it off a little bit. And we'll continue with the same rhythm until we're done. 2 more scoops on top of the spent pulp. Later, when this patty gets very thick, I'm only going to put 1 scoop. We don't want the patty to be too thick. Now here's another tip. Whenever you have puddling in your bowl, what you can do is take your spent pulp, crush it up, put it in the puddle of juice to absorb all that excess puddling, and then you can start with 3 scoops again. 2 more cloths in the press. Very important to center it left to right, center it front to back, all the way back, back it off a little bit, and we're going to continue. And again, because this patty is very thick, we're only going to put 1 scoop. 1 scoop of pulp. Fold it into as tight a package as you can make. Flatten it, set it aside. Now 1 scoop, advance it all the way when you're on your last cloth. Last cloth here, using a spatula, get all this pulp out of here into my last cloth. Set this aside and wash later. And fold this into a nice tight package. Advance that all the way. What I'm going to do with these spent cloths is I'm going to form them into a tight package and press again to demonstrate for you how I can get more than 10% more juice from this spent pulp that frankly most people throw away. So let's fold these into a nice tight package. Now as you can see, I've repackaged all of the spent pulp into 3 double packets, and I'm going to use a measuring beaker to measure how much more juice we can get using the Whole Health Foundation premium model with this solid bottom plate. Now I also notice some of these packets are very, very thick, so I may have to repackage it a second time. So I'm going to flatten that as much as I can, put it in the press, and let's see how much juice we can get from this already pressed and spent pulp. So in the center, front to back, left to right, very much has to be in the center, all the way back, and I'm going to back it off a little because I don't want that to go up too fast. Well, there's 4 ounces so far. Now here we have 13, almost 14 ounces so far. And still a few more clouds to press. Advance that a little more. Now there's 18, almost 19 ounces of juice, and I need to stop this because it's going to overflow. So what I'm going to do now is pour this into the larger container. There's another 10 ounces of juice, and we still have some double packets to press, but I think you get the idea. So what I'm going to do now is fill some more bottles. My last step is to wash the cloths in cold water to scrub off any pulp, and then press the water out, and then put them in the freezer. The reason we put them in the freezer is germs can't grow in the freezer. Press all the water out, then put them in a plastic bag and into the freezer. Now, as you can see, my friends, I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 22 bottles of juice from this batch, plus enough for a taste test. And remember that 2 of these bottles came from pressing the already spent pulp, and that's juice that most people would throw away. So let's do a taste test. Well, let's do a taste test, and I'm guessing with the tomatoes there'll be a lot of tomato taste. Let's give it a try. I can definitely taste the tomatoes and the French sorrel. A very tasty juice this time. Well, my friends, I hope you like what you've seen. If you do, please tell a friend. If you'd like to telephone me, my phone number is 760-753-0321. My email address is developtrust@cox.net, and my webpage is wholehealthfound.com. And I hope that you find whole health in your life when you do your juicing. See you in the next video.